tutorial. I call it Caramel Blast. We will make an effect of caramel explosion, but in different way, like an explosion in vacuum. This tutorial will cover everything from the beginning till shading and adjusting composition in After Effects. Okay, let's get started. Go ahead and create a chocolate candy. Okay, create an empty geometry node, call it main, paint in red for better visualization. Let's create a sphere, convert it to polygons and add more frequency. Yeah, we need it for better detailization. Create also a null node, we will rely on it later. Okay, now let's create noise on the object surface. However, I think second, let's create rest attribute just in case. High chance we will need it. Add anti-aliasing noise. And import our rest attributes through the bind node. Don't forget that rest is a vector attribute. Connect noise output to color, but first let's run it through the ramp. It's not yet what we need. Let's increase frequency. We don't need roughness at all. Let's create another anti-aliasing noise. Change the frequency here too. We have both positive and negative values at the output of the noise. However, we don't need negative values at all. Let's convert them to plus with the absolute node. Well, looks like the resulting noise is about what we needed. Just fix the ramp. This is almost what we need. And just a little more. Okay, I think that's all for now. Okay, let's add an offset of all this noise now. Add displacement allowed normal node. Put ramp output on the mount input. Now let's promote scale of displacement and offset on noise node. Change offset a little bit. 0.05 no, 0.03 is better, I suppose. Yeah. Adjust offset again. Probably we will set the final noise pattern later according to camera. Let's remove color attribute so it doesn't disturb us. Add smooth. The basic shape of the candy is ready. Okay, now let's add decorative details to it now. Create a merge where we will add all the candy elements, and then we will convert everything to VDB. It will be a seam that simulates glue into part of candies. Just make it a little larger than the candy itself. There are not enough divisions. Let's put 256. Convert to curves using polypath node. Now polywire works. Of course, it's necessary to increase divisions and scale radius down. Scale everything by y-axis. Enough for now. Radius of the element should be smaller, of course, and add it to common merge node. Let's see how it all looks together. Oh, I haven't even saved the scene yet. Let's save. Save. Yeah, shape is fine. I'm fine with it. Let's assign job variable right away. And add more small decorative elements. There is an interesting element that looks like two twisted threads, spirals. Copy our sickle node. Okay. Reset the settings, move it up a little bit, and convert to curves, of course, by polypath node. Another curve will go around this curve. Okay, create sweep node. Change the surface shape to square tube. Select surface type columns. Decrease the number of these columns, like put 2 and twist them around the original curve. We will not guess settings. Put my settings in the roll field 20 and same 20 into partial twist. And for sure change twist mode into twist per edge option. Yeah, like this. The number of loops will depend on the number of points on the original curve. Add points with the resample node and the number of turns increased else. Now you can apply polywire and merge with other objects. Just make radius of the profile curve smaller. There are two elements like this. Let's duplicate it. Move our copy up a little and reduce radius too. With the mirror node, we will mirror both curves to the lower part. Move our copy. Okay. Add mirror and change the axis along which the object is mirrored to Y. Merge with the rest of the objects and add polywire node on curves. Did I put everything correctly? I think yes. Well, let's create the last decorative element that is located between the spiral and the central element. Take old sickle node, of course, put it into merge. Okay. Convert into course by polypath. Now we need a group by range node. In order to make a desired pattern, select every second point and scale them inside. Every second point is highlighted. Now we will scale them inside by transform. One more time. Add polywire node and mirror everything to the bottom. Reduce radius and add more divisions. By the way, in the previous elements, let's add divisions too. Looks better. Let's see how all objects looks together. Need to scale up, of course, so the course will not go inside the candy. And move up a little. It looks not bad now. Copy mirror node. All candies elements are ready. Now convert everything to VDB volume in order to see all elements into a single mesh. Set the voxel size much less, 0.05. I think that's enough. Okay, let's smooth volume and convert to polygons. The shape of the candy is ready. Let's cache it. It's the best to cache as often as possible, so all the nodes will not be calculated every time. Let's cache one frame only. Done. In the next part of the lesson we will break the candy and make chocolate debris. Okay, it's time to shatter candy. Let's make pieces that fly off. Let's put the camera first. I suggest using my camera settings. Camera exposed, let's rename it right away. Save scene. Using the paint node, select our active fracture area. That part of the candy that will turn into pieces and fly away. Paint this area white. Make brush radius bigger. Okay, black candy blends into the viewport background It would be better to switch it to gray. Well, the active area will be something like this. Active area is a part of candy that will be involved in the dynamics. Okay. Okay, starting from version 17, Houdini has a very useful asset, RBD fracture materials. We will use this asset for object shattering. But it uploads very slowly, unfortunately. I don't think that asset uploads so quickly on my computer. I just cut the minute off on editing. I will not choose parameters, just put in the settings from the final object, from the final project, sorry. But we broke the ball, the sphere. But candy has the thickness of the chocolate layer, so let's set it up. Okay, and just create a sphere and put it inside the candy. Using the clip note, I will show you how it should look. Scale the candy a little. We had to create shell, but that shell must be flat inside. Reverse normals. Yeah, this is a correct shape now. There is a nougat-like substance inside else. So yes, and now we need to add points responsible for the density of the fragments. Okay, add scatter node. Add 25 points. Spread them according to the color attribute. Relax. Relax iteration doesn't work in this mode, I suppose. Okay, let it be. Transfer color attribute to candy with thickness. Disable scatter node for now. Okay, we will break model with the thickness. Check how it broke. Broke well. The edges of the pieces are too even, but this can be fixed. Let's get back to scatter. We need points to set fracture by them. White area must have more clusters than black one, and size of pieces must be smaller. Let's create a group for our points. Then in the fracture material node, we will need to specify the name of the point group. Oh, I pressed that, suddenly did not choose a group, sorry. Specify the name of the group, impact points group. And put group on the first input of material fracture node. Okay, let's check what we have now. And yes, white area has more chunks than black one. Turn on the manual node and put the settings of the shutter from the final composition. Add edge details so the pieces will get some jagged edges. Check it. Something wrong. Shuttering is correct, of course. I think paint not collapsed. Scatter is okay. Yeah, Houdini froze. This reloaded scene, sorry. Remove color for a while. Worked correctly, but the paint not collapsed, as I thought. Cache for now. One frame. Save. One second. Apparently the settings changed after Houdini crash. Glitching. Oh, but not glitches. Glitches because I moved caches to another folder. Sorry, I very recklessly created a folder for caches on the external drive. Free space ends there very fast, so I transferred caches to another folder, but forget to replace them into the scene. Yeah, my mistake. There was full geometry apparently. Yeah, and replace this cache too. Yeah, works fine now. This fracture satisfies me. Create packets using assemble node now. I think we still need a color attribute. Let's create a group for dynamics packets, those packets that will participate in the dynamic. Packets with white color will participate in the simulation. Okay, let's look at them. Doesn't work. I think I didn't ask to transfer color attribute. But if you transfer color attribute in the sample node, we will not get what we needed. So it's necessary to transfer color on packets from model that lays before assemble node. Keep it CD. And now if you look at the active area, it has changed. became what we need. Yeah, nothing extra is now included in it. By the way, let's keep this stage static. It will not participate in the animation. We will need it later. We will need it when we make caramel. We have to make and apply active attributes on packets so they know that they participate in dynamic. If the attribute is equal to 1, then the packet participates in the dynamic. If 0, it's static. Create an active attribute. It's an integer attribute and assign it value 1. Only you need to assign the attribute by the group that we created before. Okay, what's sorry, I've written ptnum instead of 1. My mistake. Well, some packets have active attributes equal to 1, some with 0. Packets with 0 value will not participate in dynamics. I remove color attribute. Oh man, this is how the viewport works with packets. Shows color anyway. Damn it. But it's okay. This will not affect the dynamics in any way. Now let's deal with the dynamics. Okay, create dot network. By the way, I forgot to set the animation duration 100 frames. It's 4 seconds. Create rigid body solver and RBD packet object nodes. Okay, we import packets from the first input of the dot network. Add gravity to test. Works well. As you can see, packets painted into white move, while the black ones are static. Okay, let's now create a force that will explode the candy. Come back to our painted area. Let's create normals on the points for convenience. I personally prefer working with normal markers than with velocity trails. We can see the direction of movement in normal markers, not the trails from movement as with velocity representation. Create a simple noise, curl noise. Okay, add noise on current normals. Add normals. Something like that. Yeah. Cool. Increase frequency. Reduce amplitude. Actually, this is what we need, just not normals, but velocity. Well, let's throw on the force just in case, maybe we'll use it later. I don't know. Exclude the black candy area from our custom force. We don't need to velocity on it. Well, so points in the black area have zero velocity. Now, when our force is ready, it will transfer the values of velocity from points on the spheres to packets according to some radius. Come back to dot network. We no longer need gravity. You can delete this node. Create geometry warp. This geometry warp. Okay, let's assign link to our custom force to the second input of geometry node. In order to transfer velocity from custom force, use a point cloud open node. In the point cloud open node, specify the radius of the transfer, and in point cloud filter attribute velocity, our velocity. We will not put anything to force and add the new velocity values to the existing one. Let's see what we get. Can see some explosion. Let's add a blast power multiplier, because now the fragments are flying pretty slow. Definitely debris should fly faster, I think. Increase by 5 times, must be better. Okay, let's check. It looks more like an explosion now. We'll do the retiming later. We need the shards flew very quickly at the beginning of the animation and slow down till the end. Let's limit our force by first 10 frames. However, I think it's not necessary. Packets fly out of range of force during first 10 frames. Load animations through dope import node. Make a cache, of course, until we start to work with retiming. I will cut the cache process on editing, no need to look at it. Add normals. Packets in the viewport. Bugly color, normals. Okay. Let's make a retiming. First of all, we have to slow down all debris till the slowest animation that we have to get in final. Okay, let's look at Play Blast. Paint the time. Slow down the animation by 5 times. Sorry, I missed it. As we can see, packets are folded inwards. This is not what we wanna get. Problems should go away when we apply the subdivision interpolation method. Make one more Play Blast. Well, they explode slow and without glitches in motion. Now we will speed up the beginning of the animation at the time shift node. We'll change the speed of movements along the ramp. Make it high at the beginning and slow at the end. Change method field from frame to time mode. Create a null and an empty wrangle nodes. Just for more comfortable work, let's combine all these 4 nodes into one block, and let's call it renaming. The script in our wrangle will work on detail level. Pay attention to this. Create the first variable in which we will write animation duration in seconds. Call it max time. It will be time in seconds. We have 100 frames, which means 4 seconds. Create an attribute frame. The name can start with a capital letter and move it through the ramp. This attribute will be responsible for animation speed. Fit time attribute. This is internal Houdini attribute within 1, 0. Now it's within 0, 4. Set the animation duration to 4. And multiply all this expression by the value of the animation duration, in our case 4. Multiply by max time variable. Now we will write a link to the speed control ramp in the time shift node. Let's rename wrangle. Otherwise it's not convenient to refer to its long incompressible name. It's unclear which wrangle we refer to. And for some reason it doesn't work. Why? Oh no, some glitches it works, I suppose. Adjust the ramp. Fly fast in the beginning of animation and slow down towards the end. Well, works great. we can cache and work with this. It's very easy to see on Playblast the speed of chunks is fast at the beginning and slow down in the end. Let's unpack packets, convert to polygon geometry, and assign a white color or any other color for better visualization. We are done with chocolate. By the way, let's paint in the appropriate color again for better view. Paint into brown. Okay, make a play blast. Well done. Move to caramel. Let's finally get into caramel. Is this caramel? First of all, we need to determine the area in which we have this caramel. In fact, it will be on the border of static and animated chocolate. Select the active area. Later I will call it an active area, the part that disintegrates into fragments. Let's merge all these objects together, and then we will convert it into VDB, I suppose. Where is our original candy model? Oh, there it is. Let's take it after the color node. I mean, take already black model. To see the border of the static and active part, let's add the transfer attribute node. Override the color attribute. Paint the active part into red. In transfer attribute node settings, set distance threshold parameter as small as possible, so that the red won't color over the edge of dynamic part of the candy too much. We don't need it. But offset is pretty big anyway. I would like to note that the caramel shouldn't be inside of the static area. Let's transfer the active area to VDB. And add VDB reshape in a road mode. And convert it back to polygons. And put it on attribute transfer. Don't forget to move color node after converting to polygons. Now you can see that the red area has become smaller, which means the border between the red and black region will be along the internal part of static candy area. But how to select the border between the black and red areas? With the help of wonderful node, group from attribute boundary. As far as I remember, it was realized in Houdini version 18. It's enough to replace the attribute in the field, replace UV to CD. Well, we can see that the border includes a group of edges. Just for convenience, we will promote this group into a group of points. Just give it an appropriate name like border underline group, and delete everything outside of this group. So we got emitter for caramel. He's just on the edge of the candy break. But I see some artifacts. Let's remove them. Add some blend with. Now emitter looks correct. Let's check right now how this caramel area connects with our candy. The main thing is that emitter for caramel does not go too far on the static part of the chocolate. Well, seems to be fine. Doesn't overlap much. This will be our so-called caramel area. Paint it black. And let's paint those places where there will be caramel pools. Let's call them rays, for instance. It's not necessary for this rays to grow from the entire caramel area. They should be in certain places only. Oh, paint it. Let's create points in these areas using the scatter node. In the density attribute field, write CD, write our color attribute. Return force total count. Let's create 8 points, for example. Relax iteration doesn't work in this mode. Okay, stop touching scatter. Let's create a pop network. Set emission type into all points. Let's force curves grow and connect points by polygons. Points must be launched in orbit. Use pop axis force node. I'll just set a parameter that I have been struggling so long to find for the final version. Increase air resistance value. Remove fell off. We got such a nice spirals. There's only one moment. Let me show. Firstly, let's see how the spirals looks like with candy. Now let's take only the static part of the candy. See, now you can see that spirals go inside the candy. This can be fixed by simply moving the center of the axis force. Let's decrease orbit spitals. Decrease sunshine spital. and move the center of axis force to the side. This motion path I like more. So that particles do not fly at the same speed, let's randomize their mass. Mass attribute is internal Houdini attributes for particles. It's float attribute. Set it from 0.3 to 3. Okay, do we have, yeah, we have mass. This original mass, just uncheck the box, ignore mass. Let's check how it works with and without mass. Looks better with randomized mass, I think. Okay, one more time. With random mass and without. Different result. Connect points with polygons. Create a curve from them. Connect points using ID attribute by add node. But since every bond particles get his own ID attribute, we will assign it on points that our emitter, and all new points that will be emitted from them will inherit a value of ID attribute. Do not forget to disable overwriting ID attribute in the pop network. Build our spirals. Sorry, I selected pop network. Okay, let's put null. As you can see, ID attribute is not overwritten, but takes a value from points of our emitter. And thanks to this, we can connect the dots together. Cache our curves. I will clean up the caching process during editing. We don't need animated curves. We will make growth using curve node. Freeze the curves in the last frame. Probably there was no need to cache the entire animation. Address sample. We need to make a uniform distribution of points along the curve and create a curve attribute, of course. Let's visualize curve attribute. The value of the attribute decreases with each new point along the curve. At the null point it's equal to 1, and at the last point 0. Add smooth node. Now we need to decide how to fill the space between curves, but only at the beginning of the growth. This area. It's better to show what I mean by adding polyvar node. It's necessary to fill the distance between the curves near the area where caramel meets chocolate. Let's duplicate them. Mm, 5 times. That's what I want to do. Shift each copy along y-axis by a random value in a loop. Create point warp inside of each for each connected pieces loop. Okay, what I mean, we have many curves and we need all of them to converge into one point. You need to get such pattern. Yes, create turbulence noise. We'll randomly move the points with noise, and using the curve attribute we will select the place where curves merge into one line. Yeah, remove roughness forever. But we have to randomize position only by y-axis. So let's split vector position attribute on 3 components. We will not change x and z components, but add noise to y. Okay. We see that noise goes only by y-axis. We don't need to apply noise along the whole length of the curve. Using the curve attribute, we can specify a mask for noise. Amplitude of the noise depends on the value of the attribute curve U. Import attribute into verb. It's float attribute. Let's move it through fit node. It's already in the range from 0 to 1, but it's possible to set new output values. Sometimes it's necessary. Add ramp parameter. Sorry, another ramp. It will be a spline ramp. Let's create a multiplier node. We'll apply noise to the first input and curve attribute ramp to the second input. Let's put ramp to color for convenience. We can see that amplitude and noise has almost zero values in the end of curves. Let's immediately promote all parameters of the noise. I will put ramp lower. I don't like when it's on the very top of parameters. Oh, What a horrible name I gave to that ramp. Let's go back to the VOP and fix it. Endless problem with copy paste and Houdini. Put ramp in the end. Adjust ramp a little. And now we have correct noise. Now we need to add a random shift of the curves. They should move up and down. Increase amplitude. Put zero values of frequencies in X and Z. Change offset a bit. Let's go back to curve randomization. Create an additional metadata node in for each loop. Give it shorter name. Metadata node contains a set of attributes at the detail level. We are particularly interested in the iteration attribute. This is the index of the current iteration. For example, in the input of loop we supply 40 objects, then the current iteration index will be from 0 to 39. Actually, our offset value we will get from random value of iteration attribute. Write expression in the offset field on the y-axis. Talk it about random, but forgot to write, excuse me. And still something wrong. Mistaken iteration word. Change type of noise. Well, this is almost what we need. Now we face it another problem. Curves do not grow out of our caramel area anymore. Well, where is our emitter, I wanna know? It's necessary that the curves grow exactly from the emitter area. Wrong field, sorry. Let's merge our objects. You can see that the curves have shifted beyond the emitter. Remove the unnecessary color attribute. And using the ray node, we connect the curves and the emitter of the caramel. We must specify the distance and which the ray will operate. We can apply the color attribute to the distance, I think. Wrong in syntaxes again. What did they? Let's add smooth. Well, they join it up with the caramel area, but not quite the way I wanted actually. Let's adjust the parameters of our noise a little. Not exactly pretty, especially the bottom part. It converged into 1 point. I would like to avoid this. It got a little better. Fix the ramp a little more. The far side is generally excellent, beautiful, but the front one is not very good, especially the bottom part. It's necessary to find appropriate parameters of the distance on the ray, and of course play with noise parameters with offset first and foremost. I just ramp a little more. Let's leave it and set parameters for now. Now we have curves and we can animate their growth using the curve node. I think this animation will do. But we don't need animation from the first frame. So let it start to grow from the fifth frame. Let's leave 5 frames for animation of pieces of chocolate candy. No need for caramel to intersect with pieces of chocolate. This curve growth suits me. Let's animate the noise amplitude also, so that the thickness of the caramel stream is not big at the very beginning. At the end of the caramel pool, there is such a thickening. You can achieve it by building a profile along curve, but we will go a little differently. Copy our reference node curve. Set extract mode and get points, and copy spheres on the points. Note that the growth animation should be identical in both curve nodes. Create a separate group for these points. Okay, let's build geometry on our curves by polywire node. And now we need to solve another problem. If you look at caramel at the beginning of its growth, the profile is flattened, and towards the end it turns into a pipe. The profile is already a sickle. Now I will show you how we can do it. Let's remove polywire and construct geometry with a sweep node using the additional groove as a profile. And reduce thickness of the pipe and uncheck the stretch field. Create end caps. We need close space since later we will have to create VDB. Just in case, uncheck rotation and twist modes on the curve. And now let's make the final shape of our geometry using the scale ramp. The caramel will be thicker at the beginning, decrease towards the end, and at the very end create a thickening. Yeah, profile turned out quite well. And now we can return to the task in which we need to change caramel shapes as it grows, flat at the beginning and round in the end. Make a reference copy of the sweep node. All settings must be identical. We will only distort the profile curve. Scale profile curve. While we have two geometries with the same polygon count, we can make a blend shape. Create point warp. Using the curve attribute, we can set the mask by which one form will morph into another. Add mix node. On the first input, we will give the position of the first geometry, and on the second input, the geometry from the second input of the warp node. Add import point attribute node. Put it on the second input of mix node. Sliding the bias parameter, we can see the changes in the shape of the caramel. And now, using the curve attribute, we will create a mask by which we will change the shape from flattened to round. Let's fit attribute. By the way, it's like in my habit. Fit node is not necessary in this case. Curve U is within 1 or 0 to 1 already. And add a ramp. We can do without ramp. Well, we have achieved our goal. Using the ramp, we created flat profile at the beginning of growth and round towards the middle and end. Let's smooth our geometry. And now add the spheres at the end of the caramel spikes. Okay, later we will combine into a single mesh these splashes, spheres, and that shape of caramel that we used in the beginning as emitter. Spheres are too big, reduce the radius. Let's fix the spheres animation, otherwise they will overlay on chocolate. Add splashes and spheres into merge node. Let's see how they look together. It's for me pretty fine. In fact, the basic setup of caramel is ready. Let's add to merge the caramel that lies along the border of broken chocolate. But it needs some thickness. Add thickness using extrude. Set thickness of the extrude to 0.05. Negative values. The thickness. But we have to reverse normals. Too thin. Let's inflate it with a peak knot. This mesh is also animated. It shouldn't be visible at the beginning of the animation, even before the chocolate spread. Add smooth. 15 for instance. Let's tweak the animation of the radius of spheres a little more. Let them grow up already at 10th frame, not at 5th. Now at the beginning of animation they're still big, I think. Let's see how caramel looks together with chocolate. I hope nothing will cross each other. Overlaps a little, but it's not critical. We'll fix it later. Let's convert all objects of caramel into volume. I mean, we'll merge all objects together into a single mesh. I will definitely add VDB smooth, but later. Let's do a little trick with reshape and at thickness put 7 in the delayed field, and then in other node erode half as much. The shape has become smoother, but we haven't lost details. I think caramel will go into the area of chocolate pretty badly. Change the static part. Yeah, overlay. Let's cut off the part that goes inside the walls of the candy for now. Make a VDB from static chocolate. Using the VDB combine node, let's make difference Boolean operation. Something cut off, of course. I think the caramel is very thick now. Let's smooth it first. Make a stronger smooth Gaussian. Convert to polygons. Still too thick. Let's cache caramel. Create a flipbook and see what we have this time. Fine, but still thick. I add to one more peak node. Now the caramel looks much better and more gentle. As you can also add smoothness on polygons. Ugly artifacts get out, set up smooth. Make it smooth. The caramel is done now. Just paint it for better visualization. We'll gather our all objects in a single merge: caramel, chocolate. Let's see how it looks together. Does the caramel overlap the chocolate again? Let's see. Find the caramel laid down well, clearly along the boundary. There's not much on chocolate. We're done with caramel. Caramel is done. We can proceed to creating a substance what lies inside the candy. Probably we should have started with it, but it's too late. Let's create now. Let's take our basic sphere. I don't know what this substance is called. Nougat. It reminds me of ice cream, and so I will call it. I've tried to assign noise and polygons via warp or through attribute noise, but the result did not suit me very much. So let's assign noise on volume instead of poly object. It gives us better detalization, internal details, etc. Create a VDB from polygons node, put fill into air mode. I will use SDF, just rename surface field to density. If we create volume warp node, it will work with the density field by default. Add turbulence noise. Getting slower. This noise already looks better. For a more interesting result, let's push our noise into another noise. Go to manual mode to speed up. Add feed node. In fact, noise setup is done. Now just tweak parameters of noise and feed. Adjust roughness and amplitude. And in the second noise we will tweak parameters. Change type of noise. Change frequency and roughness a little. Parameters can be adjusted for long time. I will put those values that I found when I worked on original scene. Put negative values in feed. We have got negative values also from noise. Let's convert to polygons. Looks nicest for me. That ice cream is not very visible in the final composition, so don't spend much time on it. I will call it an ice cream. I know this is probably not it, but it really reminds me of ice cream. Or it's nougat. No, ice cream, let it be. Okay, add it to our caramel and chocolate. Let's see how everything will look together. Let's just combine it into block. Go to the very end of composition. Let's see how everything looks together. The caramel disrupts a little. Let's merge with chocolate only. The ice cream does not reach the sides of the candy at all. Let's increase its diameter. Scale ice cream. Put a transform node. Scale a little. That's enough, I suppose. Make it white. Paint it white. Fine, almost all elements of the scenes are ready. In this part of tutorial I want to pay attention to small pieces of caramel that stuck to the piece of candy. They are pretty minor. I can see any reason to simulate them to use flip, especially because of the rather high speed of the fragments. We have to add a lot of substeps. It will make simulation time enormously long. Let's make these pieces of caramel in soap context, without simulation. For a start, let's take flying pieces of chocolate. They are in our active group. We do not need all of these fragments. Let's make caramel spikes on every 10th piece. Remove randomly 80% of the fragments. By the way, do we have ID attribute? Oh, here it is. Fine. Make a channel where we will set the percentage of packets to be removed. By the way, this wrangle should be on packets, not on unpacked geometry. Packets are points. Well, when we set up any value, let's say 0.75, we will remove 75% of packets. Leave 25%, it will be enough. Let's attach pieces of caramel to Z packets. Remove all attributes. Rigid body solver creates huge amount of additional attributes. We don't need them. Remove group cells. Here you are. Create an ID attribute. Let's make trails as for caramel. Using add node, remove unnecessary geometry. We leave points only for better visualization. We will cache our points for more convenience and speed of work. Let's recalculate the velocity attribute and add a trail node. There is no animation in the first frame. The trail cannot calculate anything from it. Let's do this clever trick. Second. Freeze the first frame and put it to switch till first frame. Then our animation will run. Now the trail node does work. We'll visualize the velocity trail. Look, I want to achieve that the length of the stretching of the caramel is directly depends on the length of the velocity vector from trail length. Let's add lines. The length of this curve will depend on the speed with which the packet is flying. At some point our shards slow down and caramel should also get shorter. There is wrong direction of lines. Let's set correct direction in wrangle node. Not this wrangle. Normal will be equal to the reversed attribute position value. Now they are looking in the right direction. Now the length of curves are same, fixed. Let's make a random length for now. They will also depend on speed, and initially their lengths will be random too. Fit it. We do not need 0 or near 0 values. Let's make the minimum length 0, 0.5 and maximum 0.5. Write stamp expression in the field responsible for the length of the curve. Now the curves have different lengths. Now let's make the length of the curve also depends on the speed of the point. For starters, we will calculate the speed of points. It's very easy. The speed is the same as the velocity, it's the length of velocity vector. Isolate everything except speed attribute. As you can see, the speed of movement is within 1.5 till 7. Let's write speed in this triangle equal to the length of the velocity vector. And in the variable field of the copy stamp node, we multiply our expression by the value of the speed attribute. Houdini doesn't like it. Why? Import all attributes? Something's wrong anyway. Why? Oh yes, no need to specify the attribute type. The curves are too long. Let's fit the speed value. Now the speed is between 1 and 7. We will condense it into a different range. We'll set up new range for speed ourselves. put a new range within 0.2 and 2, we can notice that length of the curves at the beginning is quite large, and closer to the end it goes to almost 0. It's useless. Now let's build geometry along curves. Add more points on the curve. Add resample node within the curve view attribute. And put the same number of points on each curve. 10 is enough. However, we don't need tubes. And for sure we don't need sharp spikes either. Create a ramp along which we'll build profile. Import curve attribute. We do the usual steps, import curve attribute through the bind node and add feed, put through the ramp, and display and color. Let's set the correct interpolation right away. And change the radius to be taken from the color value. The ramp was taken to the color. Let's draw such a profile. After the smoothie, it should be okay, I think. Merge caramel with candy debris. Let's check how it looks together. It's okay, I suppose. It's a pretty cheating approach to make streams this way, but in our case I think it will do. These drops of caramel are too small, we need them for spare detalization. Honestly, I don't think it's worth simulating them. Let's review how all the elements look together. Paint all the caramel objects in single color. Make a flickbook. Let's see how it all looks from the camera. Fine, all elements are ready. I think there is no point to make a chapter about shading light, and it will only lengthen the already long tutorial. I don't use any secret shaders or techniques. I will share all scenes, including the render scenes and the After Effects composition. I recommend just looking at the light and shader settings from the project by the link. After all, this tutorial is not about render and composition, it's already long and exhausted. For detailing the scene, I added candies on background. They will be in the focus, at least some space filling. The focus is in general is a perfect solution for everyone. Everything looks good in the focus. Composition is also very simple. Generally, assembly by passes is not even an assembly, just adjusting a beauty path. Add occlusion, increase reflect, Fresnel for backlighting. Color correction by mask. I also share the After Effects composition. You can download it and look at the settings. As I told, I wanted to create a Houdini tutorial, not After Effects. Here is the final result. Thanks to everyone who watched it to the end. I know it was exhausted. And thanks everyone for your attention. See you in the next tutorial. Bye bye.